In tonight's headlines, officials urge people to come out and vote in tomorrow's district council elections. The government says it's well prepared to deal with the rise in respiratory infections. And Israel steps up the bombardment of Gaza as Washington vetoes a bid in the United Nations for a ceasefire.
The government has made a last-minute push to urge people to vote in tomorrow's district council elections. Chief Executive John Lee visited a polling station in Hengfa-chun to check on preparations for the vote. In a Facebook post, Lee said polling staff are ready, and he is confident that voting will be smooth. More than 30,000 civil servants will be helping out in 600 polling stations across the city. Speaking at a vintage and electric bus exhibition, Deputy Chief Secretary Che Qing expressed the hope that a wide range of activities organized by the government today would encourage citizens to cast their ballots. Culture Chief Kevin Yeung, who participated in a district carnival, distributed election pamphlets and urged people to vote. The elections are the first at district level under the revamped electoral system. Only 88 of the 470 seats in the city's 18 districts will be directly elected. Carnivals, featuring sports and game stalls, were held in 6 public parks as part of the government's effort to raise awareness of the elections and woo voters. The Science and Space Museums were among local attractions that didn't charge visitors today. The highlight was an outdoor evening concert featuring almost 100 artists and a pyrotechnics show at the West Kowloon Cultural District. Janice Yu, Cable News. The police force says it will allocate enough manpower when Hong Kongers vote in the district council elections tomorrow. In a Facebook post, police said more than 10,000 officers will be deployed at polling stations and at strategic spots across the city. The counter-terrorism unit will be on standby at landmarks and in crowded areas in case of emergency. To guard against any tampering, officers were scheduled to deliver ballot papers to polling stations tonight.
Police have smashed a suspected money laundering syndicate and arrested 12 people aged between 20 and 45. The suspects were allegedly involved in laundering up to $30 million collected through criminal activities. Officers seized $1.2 million in cash, several bank cards, and laptops during the bust. Crime syndicates deposited large sums of money into the accounts of the suspects, who then made further bank transfers with each other to hide the source of the funds. Part of the deposits were withdrawn to trade in virtual assets. Police suspect the case may be related to dozens of earlier scams involving almost $100 million.
Health Secretary Lo Chung-mau has tried to ease concerns over a rise in respiratory infections, saying the government is well prepared to deal with the issue. He noted the increase in mycoplasma infections, but urged the public not to worry as fatality rates are low. The health chief was asked whether arrivals should be screened at the border, as suggested by a leading microbiologist. Lo says the authorities would not impose any mandatory measures as they need to consider the impact on visitors and locals. He again urged people to maintain good personal hygiene and get vaccinated, as respiratory infections and COVID cases may increase in colder weather. The Health Department has revoked the license of Zhongji Longevity Daycare Center in Causeway Bay. The center is suspected of professional misconduct and operating as an unlicensed medical practice. An unlicensed X-ray machine and vitamins were seized. Staff at the center were accused of hampering health officials who inspected the premises. The health department said the X-ray machine was mainly used for full-body scans and does not affect health under normal circumstances, while the unlicensed vitamins may have been for clients suffering from vitamin deficiency. The center was told to contact customers who took the vitamins. but it reportedly does not have a logbook with accurate information of its clients' medical records. It was unable to provide officials with details. So far, the department has not received any complaints. The case is the first since the introduction of an ordinance regulating private healthcare facilities 5 years ago. Janice Yu, Cable News.
Palestinians have kept pulling out survivors from the rubble of buildings destroyed by Israel. The Palestinian death toll climbed to 17,500 following another day of relentless Israeli bombing in retaliation for a deadly Hamas attack 2 months ago. An Arab bid for an immediate ceasefire was vetoed by the United States in the United Nations Security Council. Washington says a truce will benefit Hamas. The veto disappointed the Palestinian ambassador.
This war is part of the assault to end the Palestinian people as a nation and to destroy the question of Palestine. If you do not share this objective, you must stand against the war.
The United Nations Secretary General has warned that unless there's a breakthrough, the situation in Gaza is at a breaking point.
There is a high risk of the total collapse of the humanitarian support system in Gaza, which would have devastating consequences. We anticipate that it would result in a complete breakdown of public order and increased pressure for mass displacement into Egypt. I fear the consequences could be devastating for the security of the entire region.
The warning was echoed by United Nations workers in Gaza. About 1.8 million Palestinians whose homes were bombed by Israel are reportedly being pushed into a desolate area smaller than London's Heathrow Airport. Conditions are grim, with the onset of winter making them worse.
About half of the population in Gaza are starving, and the needs that we are meeting is really nothing. The humanitarian operation is collapsing. People are really desperate, and there is fear in the air. There is fear in the children's eyes that we see, and you can almost smell the fear. They don't know where to go. They have nowhere to stay, and we have no answers for them. And that's the most frustrating part, really, of being here, not being able to help.
After tough negotiations, the European Union has drafted the world's first comprehensive Artificial Intelligence Act, which could put a jurisdictional boundary around the evolving technology. The recent boom in AI has been identified as an existential threat to mankind and needs to be reined in with legal oversight to avoid misuse. Details about the legislation, which is still open for discussion, are sketchy and is expected to become law by 2025 at the earliest.
We had one objective: to deliver a legislation that would ensure that the ecosystem of AI in Europe would develop with a human-centric approach, respecting fundamental rights and the European values. This meant we had to develop a strong and robust risk-based approach that we developed to defend everyday citizens from the risks that AI can endure in everyday contexts, and also foster the development of new business ideas with the sandboxes.
At least 14 people have been killed in a fire at a university dormitory in the northern Iraqi city of Erbil. The dormitory was in a building used as living quarters by academic staff and students from the local university. Firefighters rescued a number of people from the upper floors of the building. 18 people suffered injuries and were taken to hospital. An electrical short circuit is suspected of causing the blaze.
Consumer prices in China have recorded their steepest decline in 3 years, intensifying deflationary pressure in the world's second biggest economy. The Consumer Price Index for November fell 0.5% from a year ago, raising concerns that recovery may be hampered by weak domestic demand. Food prices dropped significantly last month. The Producer Price Index also retreated, falling 3% year-on-year to extend its decline for the 14th consecutive month.